From Hong Kong, this is the Mea Culpa podcast with lessons learned from startups, based on the Postmodern conference, where founders, investors, lawyers, and mentors share their stories about working on, with, or for startups. Today, we have Hoyin, the CEO and founder of Remo.co. Hoyin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey. Super happy to be on your podcast. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Hoyin, how did you make your way into startups?
Um, for me, I've always wanted to do something on my own since I was in college. Um, I started getting into it when I came back to Hong Kong, and I started just doing, small projects here and there, just trying things. A lot of things that didn't work and some things that did. And then just through doing a lot of small projects and a lot of small things, it just started to get me to learn about um, startups in general, and also Founders Institute, obviously. Those are like great opportunities that allowed me to uh, get into it, get my feet wet, learn about it, know people, etc. So yeah, all those things.
Okay, but because originally you studied accounting, I think was correct.
No, originally I studied bioengineering and I was working for a bank previously. I've worked at a management consulting company previously in IT.
Okay, and how did you at that point came up with like I want to be that entrepreneur? What was the drive there? What was the itch for yourself that you wanted to
I
scratch for
think
that?
um I think like when I was a kid, I remember um that I really wanted to create something that I was really passionate about, that I would put in a lot of effort in. And so when I was a kid, I always wanted to do that. And entrepreneurship, I think, or startups just seemed to be one of those things where I could pour a lot of information or a lot of effort into something that I really, really enjoyed doing and was motivated by doing. So I think it was definitely when I was definitely in college when I learned about a lot of other future entrepreneurs. When I was in college, it was like right after the dot-com bubble in 2001. And so there was like a lot of talk about startups and failure and all that kind of stuff and what to do. And I think that was like a time where I really got immersed in that kind of mindset and the belief in technology and the future of entrepreneurship.
What was your first venture, and what became of that venture as your first time founder?
So my first venture was I sold a car phone mount on Amazon.com. Um, and it was a magnetic car phone mount that um, we produced, and it was the first one to hit the market that was magnetic. And I was quite lucky in the sense where that the first project out the door that I did with some friends was successful. Um, we were a top 10 car phone mount for over 3 4 years. We sold it at a really good margin. Nobody really copied us for some reason until much later. And it ran for about a good 4 or 5 years, and gave me that kind of initial capital to then do something else. So it kind of shut down after that because there were too many competitors that were like very cheap, um and it was a very hard to compete market, and so we decided to like close it down afterwards.
Um, because it's your first venture. If at that point you're in that position, right, that their competitors are coming up, they're making cheaper or they're selling cheaper. What was the point for you that you decided, hey, this is not going to work? We have to close this down because, yeah, you could have also gone with different products. You could also gone lowering your
Right.
price. So at one point, there should be for you probably a decision saying this has no use to continue.
Yeah, lowering price wasn't really worth it, given all the effort that we put in. That was the reason why we decided that lowering price, like, well, we did lower price, by the way, and it's just we didn't want to keep lowering the price. It just didn't be it wasn't really worth it anymore. The other thing is that, we didn't want to expand further into like the car phone market space. Like, it just wasn't something that we really wanted to do. Um, and frankly, it was a great space to be in for a few years, but it didn't really have too much defensibility in it in general. And so we wanted to kind of go do something else. So I did go out and try to find other products to do and other hardware products to do. But then, I starting to, explore tech and explore startups and tech, and then that's when I figured, hey, I want something a lot more scalable. I want something a lot more defensible. And that's when I started going into tech and kind of um, stepped out of hardware from there.
Okay. And if you look at it, you're saying we. That means that you probably had co-founders or partners in that sense. How did
Mhm.
you, as a first-time founder, arrange that? Did you had people that were already established entrepreneurs helping you how to make those kind of decisions and say co-founder agreements or that kind of thing, or you just made some errors along the way?
Yeah, so I worked with some friends on it, and we didn't have it was a unique sort of um, structure. Like, we had like a revenue share agreement between all of us. Um, it wasn't like, oh, it wasn't like, oh, we had a company. It was more of like a revenue share. Um, and it was through between friends, which I kind of don't recommend in general. We're very lucky that, we knew each other really well, and we're very honest with each other. That as friends, we had a very successful venture and also a very successful relationship during and after the venture. But that is, I would say, more of a exception rather than the norm. And I would still highly encourage people to not do that with their friends, even though we were successful in that. But I haven't done business with friends since then. It was a very, very unique set of individuals that we laid the ground rules very, very clearly, and that led to very minimal problems. But you need a degree of maturity and a degree of experience, I guess, with each other to be that honest and to be that honest, basically. Yeah.
Quite often when I talk to aspiring entrepreneurs, they were like, "Yeah, I have some friends that are helping out." Uh, then, yeah, we have to give them some advice on that, and then basically giving the same advice that you're now giving. But where did you got that knowledge? Like, did you had experienced entrepreneurs advising you, or you saw already like errors somewhere else, or you read a book, or how did you get to that knowledge?
We yeah, we got, we had some of uh our, like, kind of parents' generation, like, they've done business and they would warn us about that, so they definitely told us about that, and warned us that you guys gotta be careful. These are the things that you need to do, have clear expectations, good communication, da 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 da, to prevent these things. So we got a lot of guidance from our parents that have basically done this before.
Okay, so you're coming out of a family of entrepreneurs or at least business people.
I guess so, you could say that, yeah, yeah, for
Okay,
sure, absolutely.
okay. But then, yeah, you decide to say goodbye to your first venture.
Yeah.
What was next for you then? Like, how do you come up with a next idea, or did you start working for a boss for a while?
So I think it's about, like, for me, all of the ventures that I've done, you can draw a line in between every single one of them. Each one is connected to each other in some way or form. So when I was working on the Carphone mount, I was trying Instagram and creating leads through Instagram. And so I found a way how to get followers and to get more leads, and that became a SaaS product called Rightly Social. And that's when I started doing that, and for a while, and that became a business. So every single business kind of originated from one of the previous projects or things that I did. And and I think that's what I believe is a pretty key learning, which is like you just got to do something. You just got to create something, try something, because things will come out of it. Opportunities will come to you once you just do something over time.
So from the magnetic car mounts, you went into social media,
Hmm.
rightly social, as you
Right,
said.
right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that venture?
Yeah, so Rally Social was was helping small medium businesses grow their engagement and their followers on Instagram mostly, but we could do it on some other platforms at that time. And it's a SaaS platform that just helps them with their engagement. Um, and I grew that from nothing. I think it was like 60,000 MRR was like the highest that we were doing. And I had like 25 people on the team. And I
Okay.
outsourced I like had a remote team, I had a predominantly Filipino team actually. Most of the people that were working for me were in the Philippines. So I really kind of made it into a it was there's some, work that needed to be done from an operation side. I made a lot of things, some things manual and some things very what's the word? Automated. It was a combination of both. And yeah, and then we were able to grow to a pretty, you know, okay amount, and then that helped kind of like open up new doors to other things as well.
As you know, obviously, that social media is a very highly competitive area, right? Helping companies do social media. Why do you think you got to the stage that you got to? What was unique about you compared to others?
I think it was timing. One was timing, and then I think two was like I was early. I was a bit early, and and two is like I kind of pioneered a lot of things that were in that industry a little bit, like how to reach customers, how to serve customers, and all that kind of stuff. So it was it was something that a lot of other people weren't doing, and I was able to do a lot with very little resources. And I think that helped. Um, yeah, that helped a lot. I mean, that helped kind of drive the company forward and stuff like that. But eventually, also like I did that project for quite some time too, and then that project also had was also getting competitive too. And so and when I was in that project, I started investing in developing new products, new projects, stuff like that. So I'm always like looking at something else. Like I'm doing something and always experimenting on the side, always looking for product market fit almost. Like the product market fit journey for me never really ends, is what I've learned. It just
Mhm.
keeps going. You're always trying to find product market fit into some degree for something. Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, also in the meantime, when you're doing this, you also went through the Founder Institute program
Right.
in Hong Kong. You went there with an ID. Can you tell me a little bit more about that idea?
Yeah. So when I went through Founders Institute in Hong Kong, I was like super excited because I got to meet a lot of people and build my network and stuff like that. And when I first started, I came with this idea of and honestly, like I wasn't really sure that idea would really go anywhere to begin with. I didn't think I would really be able to do it, but I was able to learn and test and stuff like that. Basically is like a mobile app that you would take pictures of your food and it would tell you what nutritional value was of that food. And and I came up with the idea, and I did a concierge MVP of it, meaning like I created this website, a WordPress site, and didn't use any coding. And somebody would take a picture, upload it onto this WordPress site, onto their own account, and then someone would receive an email and manually look at the picture and try to estimate what food it is, how much of volume it is, and then look up all the nutritional values, and then like send it back to the person. And it took around about 3 minutes to do, but because I was able to show a prototype and I was able to create this really convincing argument, um, I was able to go through Founders Institute. I think I was one of the top in terms of score, one of the top candidates in that class, and also I was able to get $10,000 in funding for that idea. So that allowed me to kind of continue test and try out different things. And but eventually it didn't work. Eventually, I would consider that a failure. And that was those are definitely a lot of learnings there.
Why didn't it work?
So when you one of the things was that like obviously was you need really strong computer vision to identify the products, the foods there. But also the problem is that like a lot of food is all mushed together. So even if you could identify it with computer vision, it's maybe not be easy to kind of dissect it. And the other way is maybe you have a record of every single dish and what are the nutritional values of every single dish everywhere, like some sort of huge database. Um, and so there was a lot of technical challenges there. The second challenge was that people just weren't willing to pay for it, really, and that was a problem. And so the only other potential way that you could get payment is for insurance companies, so that people can eat healthier and the insurance company would pay for it. It's kind of like the step, the step thing on your watch, or you know what I mean. Like that, people don't really pay for that, but they might get a discount off of their insurance. So that was like one thing. But I didn't know anyone in insurance. So it was really difficult to go and sell to those companies. And when I initially sold it, they weren't interested. And the people who were willing to pay, they were like diabetics, and diabetics want it to be very, very accurate. So it's like a challenge of not paying, don't care about accuracy, or you pay and you really care about accuracy. And accuracy obviously was something that was really difficult to do in this situation. And so I realized that I'm probably not the right person to do it. And ultimately, it's too difficult. Like you need computer vision, and computer vision guys are extremely expensive, really, really expensive. And then I realized I'm probably not the right person to do this. What's funny is that no one has created this yet so far. So it's a problem that has yet to be solved, and don't know when it would ever be solved. And don't even know if it's even a good problem to solve, to be honest.
Okay. And then you were doing Riotly, and then you came up with an idea, what you're currently also working on. How did you come up with the idea from Remo?
Yeah, so with Riley. I had everyone was working remotely. It was a fully remote company, and I started learning a lot about remote teams when I was running that business because I wanted to learn how to do it. And so I went to a lot of conferences and learned a lot online about how to manage remote teams. So then I created a product. I started hiring engineers to work on create on this product while I was doing Riotly, and created a product that's kind of like a online virtual office. And that was trying to solve a problem, which I found was like it's actually very hard to connect with people online in a very human way. Um, and so that's when I started developing this vision where how do you create authentic conversations that drive meaningful relationships, because that's what you need in a business, in a company. You need to have meaningful relationships with others so that people would stay and work and have a good time working with you. Um, and so we were kind of solving our own problem. I did do some validation. I validated. I interviewed like a whole ton of people uh, that wanted to do it. The problem was that the market was too small. The market's really, really small at that time, back in 2018. And um, and also like people who are already working remotely, they didn't see this product as something that they would use. They already had their own processes. They already had their own products that they were using. It was very difficult to migrate out. And so you could only really attract all the new companies that are trying to become fully remote. And back in 2019, no one was doing that. And only like remote teams really started to pick up at the end of 2019, just right before the pandemic, coincidentally. Um, and so it is a failure in some sense that the initial idea that I thought, I interviewed people and they said that they needed it. They said that they wouldn't want it, but it failed. And um, and when I pivoted into conferences and events, that's when I saw people were just like ecstatic about it. They were just so happy to see it. And that's one of the key learnings that I've had, which is you gotta test it and just you gotta if you create something and it doesn't work, you have to keep on testing it and just showing it around, packaging it differently, you target different people, do different use cases until you're lucky enough to find something that people really, really resonate with. And that's the key, I think, to startups, which is find things that people resonate with. Find things that people resonate with. They're like, oh my God, this thing's great. And um and just follow that. Follow that. And that's what startups is. Startups is a bunch of trial and error and figuring out what works.
Did you do that by yourself, or do you have co-founders in that?
I did by myself as well. I think I'm a little bit unique in a way that like I've always had a business, rolled that into something else, and kept on rolling and rolling and rolling into something else. So I never really had the opportunity to work with a co-founder or to get funding. It was just I'm building a business. I'm not building a startup to kind of get funding or whatever. I'm building a business to make money, and that kind of is what is based off of that. But I have people that I work with that are really great, and that they sort of are really really involved and engaged in what I'm doing and what we're trying to accomplish. So even though I don't have a co-founder, there's a lot of people around me that we are all very engaged in trying to achieve that goal.
Right. And did you bootstrap it, or did you get investment?
Because I already was able to fund it myself. I just funded it myself. I didn't pitch. I didn't do anything. I just funded it
Okay.
myself. Yeah.
Because at one point, what you said, right, end of 2019, beginning of 2020, COVID hits, everybody has to work from home, events are cancelled. You're at the right time, at the right with the right product. How did that go for you? Like, were you overwhelmed? Were you like, oh, what's going on right now? Well, how did that go for you
Yeah.
personally?
I mean, we were overwhelmed. I mean, it was just crazy. What's funny was that like I was gonna shut down Remo at April of 2020. Like I was like, this is not going much. I'm not too sure how long we can last. Let's just not really do much with Remo in 2020. That's by April of 2020, and then that's what and then COVID hit. You know, and we were just crazy overwhelmed. We had so many leads, we couldn't sell fast enough. It was just insane. It was just absolutely um, bonkers, crazy. Um, and so we essentially it was like a blur, really. We were just growing so fast and doing so many things. It was just really a blur. Just didn't know what was kind of happening. Didn't know when it was going to end. We thought that it was going to end, but we just didn't know when.
Mm.
So there was this sense of like, wow, this is amazing, but also a sense of like, okay, well, we don't know when it's going to end. It's just for now. And so for the full year of 2020, it was just like this weird sort of excitement, but at the same time, a sense of like uh, uh, nervousness to know how long this thing's going to last. And no one knew how long it was going to last, right? Um, we still don't know how long it's going to last. We think it's going to finish, and then Omicron comes by. So who knows at this point?
But that means that you're at that point actually looking to scale down, but all of a sudden you have to scale up. Like, how did you do that internally? Like, I can imagine that you were not ready for the book for the tidal waves that came to you.
Yeah, we weren't. We were trying to hire and sell at the same time. It was just very difficult. Extremely, extremely difficult. And hiring takes time. Really, really takes time. Um, so like the wave was there and we were like 6 months late until we actually were able to sort of meet demand. 6, 7 months more to meet demand. So it's incredibly difficult. The best way you can try to solve that is just be as self-serve as possible, which is what we did.
Weren't you scared that because you were not able to meet the demand, that at that point it would hurt your brand and people say like, oh, it's I don't know, like a city platform, they're not up to this,
Absolutely.
they're not ready. How
Absolutely.
how did you mitigate that?
Absolutely. I mean, it literally is like trying to fly an airplane as it like flies off a cliff. Like that was literally where we were at. People wanted us to be better and da da da. So, it was difficult. It was extremely, extremely difficult. Um, the only good thing is that because it was the pandemic and people had no idea what the hell's going on, they don't know what a virtual platform is, blah blah blah. Everyone was willing to be a little bit more understanding for a product that wasn't fully fleshed out. So we had that reason to bank off of. Now that's not a reason anymore. You can't use that reason. But at that time, it was acceptable because of the extreme situation.
What was at that point that you said, I'm not going to wind this down. I'm really going to do this because foresee this to be, at least for the near future, something that really hits? Was it like one big client signing up? Was that because you just thought this is going to be something, let's just like
It was
uh,
pretty simple.
drag
We
on?
we just we just made money. We started making money in March, and we started breaking even by April. So it was like
Yeah.
the
Of
money just kept going up, and that was it.
course, your internal organization was not ready for that.
Oh yeah,
How
yeah,
did
yeah. No, it was
you?
not.
What did you do to make that possible? That growth. That did you set up a structure? Did you hire managers below you? What? How did it? Because let's put it that way. In April, uh, say February, March, how many people were working on Remo at that point?
Six, six people.
Six. Six
Yeah,
people. And say 6 months later, how many people were working at that point at Remo?
it's like I think like 50.
How did you scale that up? What was for you the beacon of trust? What made that happen for you?
I mean, I've never been in that situation before. That was like brand new. It's um I was definitely like trying to figure it all out myself. So I did a lot of different things. Like we hired quickly. We hired some consultants to help us hire. Um, we hired a person who helped us with growth as well. A consulting company helped us with growth, like a startups, those startup growth companies. That helped us a lot. That helped us a lot. That was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. Um, and they helped me hire. They helped me lay out a lot of some of the groundwork, some processes, and all that kind of stuff. Really, just hustle and just hire great people. And that's the key. You got to hire really, really, really good people. And I was very lucky that I was able to meet people that were really great. I was so lucky and very grateful for that in itself, or else I would never be here by myself for sure.
How many people is Remo now?
About 100.
Okay. I was talking to somebody some time ago when I asked him like how many people are now in the development team. He said like, actually I don't know. Let me check Slack how many people are a member of their channel, and then he said
Yeah,
like, oh, it's 75.
yeah,
Do you know every single one of them? Did you hire
yeah,
every single one of them?
yeah. I hired. I met every single person.
Okay.
So I do know every single person. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's important for me to know every single person. It's important for me to have relationships with as many of them as I can. I'm not able to talk to as much of them as often, but I really care about that. I really care about being able to talk to them, being able to share with them, learn about what they're doing, share the highs and the lows together. Um, I think that's really important.
Then one of the things that you also quite often hear when it comes to scaling up that quickly is company culture. How is the company culture within Remo, and how do you keep that in place? Because 100 people, that's not easy to keep a company culture the same way as you envision it.
So company culture, when it's small, it's easy, and you determine what it is. You develop the values, the core values, and then you talk about it. And relatively, when it's a small company, it's okay. You don't need a lot of values. You need a lot of that kind of stuff. 50, 60 people, I think it's okay. When you get up to 100, I think it also depends on like how long you stay in each number of people. So we started slowing down and not hiring as many when we started going up to 100. And in that period of time, we were able to spend a lot of time making sure everyone understood all the values, and that's key. So it's a bit different from a company that just keeps on scaling, keeps on scaling, keeps going up, 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 up. That's hard. That's very, very difficult. But we kind of went and we're kind of like slowing down in the hiring and not being super aggressive. We want to, watch the market, be a little bit more strategic. We have a lot of time there to kind of make up for the gap that that we may have had before in the culture. So that kind of worked out for us. But at that time, culture really wasn't an issue because the team was just so small and it was okay. It was all right. But now we have like onboarding, we have a customer empathy program that we've launched. And these customer empathy programs try to reduce the distance between each person and the customer. And so we have that where people will go attend the group demos. They will go shadow chat support. They will go talk to customers. Like there's a lot of this sort of building up of empathy that I personally encourage. It's not only I encourage, but I basically like say you guys all need to do this because I strongly believe that we're building for the customer. We're building for humans, for people, and we are a human company. And in order to do that well, you need to understand who that person is. And so those are some of the key
And
things that we do.
and that program, came that from you, or was there a employee said like, let's do this, with a suggestion
Um,
to start doing this?
So I came up with like the overall framework for the program, but the actual individual things that people will do, I asked the whole company and saying, what would you, okay, so this is my goal. What do you guys want to do? What are you guys passionate about doing that you're comfortable with? Let's bring in those ideas. Let's vote about that. And then we put that into the program and we give everyone choices, options. Like, what do you want to do? And it's like a once a month program. So 1 month, 1 day in a month, you got to do something, and you have to choose amongst three things or whatever, depending on your department and what you like to do. Because not all engineers want to be in front of a customer. Not all engineers want to talk to someone. Not everyone is comfortable doing certain things. And so I was like, that's fine. I don't really mind what it is that I don't, I shouldn't be dictating what you should be doing, but I want to figure out what are you comfortable with and it's most effective for you personally. And how do we make this program work for you?
Okay. And do you work with like KPIs or OKRs or something else to measure the productiveness and the effectiveness of people?
We use OKRs. We use OKRs. We've been using it since the beginning. Yeah. I've been I've been using OKRs for quite a few years right now. So yeah.
And then, of course, as you say, now you still don't know how long this is going to take. But I think for now, you probably could already see that remote or hybrid working will be something that will be here forever. What do you think? What do you foresee for the near, like, 3 to 5 years where Remo is going?
Oh wow. Um I think for Remo post Omicron, I mean when we talk about post Omicron, post pandemic, like geographical expansion, going into many different types of industries. I mean, Remo is like a canvas. You can actually do a lot of different things with Remo, and so it's identifying the sequence and the order of those different use cases that we want to grow into over time. And I think that's the most coolest thing about Remo is that we have that flexibility and we have the sort of it's just I wouldn't say it's a dream, but there's a lot of opportunities where people can dream and create their own spaces that fit their business. And that's cool. And I think that's really, really cool. That keeps me engaged and that keeps my whole team engaged. That we're going to keep on building something, a platform that really is digitizing conversations.
Yeah, what you hear, of course, like a lot when it comes to engaging with your colleagues, engaging with online events, is that a lot of people still would like to do things in person, right? Of course, the
Right.
question is when and how. What do you think touches the human aspect of Remo the most? Like, why do people like Remo so much on that interaction one? Like, what was for you? Did you had like an insight? Did you had something else that you said this is the core of our interactions that makes it as much as possible? Should we even go and try to reproduce like physical interactions, or should we go the other way around? Should we go, I don't know, like non-video calls, something else?
I think what Remo is really great at is we're trying to replicate um, the real world, but in a very elegant and in the most humanistic way possible. Um, and that is something that is unique, where you can't just make a 3D world, for example, right, and expect people to like it, like Second Life or something like that, because Second Life did not succeed. So creating a 3D world is definitely not enough. My belief is that you need to make it feel human, and graphics isn't necessarily something that makes things human. What makes things human is the interaction. And I think what we're really good at is curating and making this interaction flow as easy as possible in a customizable map environment that makes them really immersed into it. It's just like, is the map like immersive? Yes. Is it exactly like real life? No, of course not. People know that it's not, but it makes people enough to feel immersed into it for now. I mean, ideally, it's like a 3D map and it's like VR, AR, all that kind of stuff. But that is one step too far ahead of everyone's current sort of knowledge and mindset of what VR technology, what technology is. You know what I mean? And so the logical jump can't be too far. And so just by using 2D, majority of people can understand that, even though it's not fully real. And so curating it, the experience, so that it's just at the right level for people, that's what's really resonating for people. And can seeing the map and also jumping from table to table, those type of movements make people really excited, because they're like, wow, this is it. It feels like as if I'm really here, and I can have a conversation. The key thing is I can have a conversation with someone else and go
And
back to some of the humanistic aspects of the interaction, not replaced by text or replaced by something else.
and did it come from your own gut feeling, or is there like academic research or some behavioral experts within remote that helps out with that?
I mean, I did do some research about like behavioral, like what is the definition of human communication? Like I did see that eye contact's really important, head nodding. Like there's a lot of these other verbal and non-verbal cues that are actually part of communication. And that's how I felt video is so important. And in my view, video is not enough. It's not enough to express those non-verbal cues. And so that's why I think there's still a lot of work to be done in this field. Um, so I did my own research. I went in and read papers. I looked at stuff myself to figure out what it means. I didn't have any experts on staff. I think there's just plenty of literature that I could have looked at. And I think the second is just experience. Like I just felt, looking at all the things that were here, what is human? What drives an authentic conversation? What are the things that drive an authentic conversation? And
And
and and we slowly kind of just crafted that experience.
and how were you able to translate it into user experience, user interface, right? Because that's what the platform is about. Just as an example, I know that, as you probably also know, Facebook has a VR working environment where you can see people in meeting rooms. And one of the reasons that they did was that they had to put in doors, like VR doors inside of the meeting room, because that made people feel more comfortable being in that room with their VR set on than being in the room without the door. Even though the door goes to nowhere, it made psychologically more sense to have a door in that. Like, How how did you go about and make, at that point, or probably still am, make Remo a place where people subconsciously think, hey, I feel at ease here, I feel comfortable here?
Well, a lot of the things that we do is I ask the same a very basic question is, what would you do in the absence of technology? Like, what would you do when you actually go to an actual physical event? And I look at all those different processes. I look at what the things that they feel, the things that they look at, all that stuff, and I try to replicate that online.
Okay.
So it's not really rocket science. It's it's I mean it's product, right? Sometimes when you create product, it's how do you interpret and how do you curate and how do you create something that's really unique. um, this type of thing is like art and science together. There's no science. It's not fully science because what we're creating is an experiential thing, and that is very consumer. And consumer is all about it's all about experience and touchy feely type thing. And so the best thing that you can do is just look at what do you do physically in the physical normal physical environment and translate that into the virtual environment, and then see what
All right.
works and what doesn't.
In true fashion, that you always say, when I make my money in somewhere else, then I at that point start experimenting in something else. Are you already experimenting in something else, or you're
Oh
still
yeah,
fully
always.
focused on Remo?
Always experimenting. Well, even within Remo and other use cases of Remo, always experimenting. Always.
What is quite often given advice when it comes to startups or entrepreneurship that you actually don't agree with?
Um, I don't think you definitely have to have VC money in order to succeed. Um, I think there's a lot of things you can do in order to get funding, to fund the product that you're doing. There's a lot of things you can do. I think everyone just simply just looks at the VC path. Um, I think there's a lot of things that you could potentially work on, and I think a lot of people kind of feel like VCs is like the only route, but I don't think it is. Yeah, there's like a lot of different things to do. So that would be like one kind of philosophy that I would disagree with.
Mhm. And what's the most valuable advice that's ever given to you?
Um, for me, is like always keep building and testing. Always keep building and testing. Always build something.
Kind of like the ABC, always be closing.
Yeah, yeah. Always
For
be
you,
closing. Always be
A
shipping. Always be yeah.
okay,
Always be
yeah,
building. Yeah.
ABB, always be
ABB. Yeah.
building.
Always be
ABB.
building.
What's something that's not a secret, but most people don't know about you?
Um, I mean, like, I've probably had more failures than successes, but the failures are just very cheap, cheap failures. So it doesn't really matter almost. I think the thing that you want to do is you want to fail cheaply and learn the maximum amount. I think that's the key. That's really the
Okay.
key. If you can do that, then failure, if you think about it, is a good because you learn astronomically way more information, and therefore you'll eventually get there.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your valuable insights and sharing of your lessons learned in startups. Is there anything that you want people to take away from this talk?
I think like I think for startups, like people really care too much about, oh, there's like competitors or there's this or that, or they might dissuade them from starting something. I think um, entrepreneurship is like learning any kind of new skill, like guitar. If you play the guitar, would you be the rock star right on the first day or the first like few months? Like, no, of course not. People have to learn a long time to do that. So it's like a skill. So you should start earlier and treat like the failing as uh, the a way to just learn as fast as you can. Essentially, I would say try to fail as fast as you can. The faster you fail, then the faster you're going to improve.
Thanks again. Thank you, Hoyin,
Cool.
for doing this.
Thank you.
For the listeners, although the rating system of podcasts is hideous, if you like this Mea Culpa series, you can rate this podcast with 5 stars and the motivation for the makers. We want to thank Copy Ventures for making this series possible. If you have any suggestions on people that we should interview, people that we should talk to, let us know. Our contact details are in the show notes. This is Jeffrey Brewer. Go out and build something meaningful. Thank you, Hoyin.
Thank you.